Alright, well, at long last, the video y'all been asking for. Why I left the University of Michigan. And then also, I was gonna talk about this in a different video, but a lot of the same like principles, concepts, whatever you wanna call them, are gonna tie into this too. So I'm also gonna talk about the reality of being a walk-on at a D1 football program, because it'll play a big part in this story. And hey, this is low-key the channel first story time, so yo, like the video, subscribe to the channel, you feel me, and drop in the comments what other like story times, what other informational type videos y'all trying to see, because you know 6 years of college football, you gonna get a lot of stories, a lot of information. So yeah, let me know down in the comments. All right, but like I said before, it's important to note that I started my career at Michigan as a walk-on. When I first got there, if there were 150 people on the team, if you rank the most important player number one, I was damn near like 145, 146. Like I was low on the totem pole, you feel me? But it actually kind of helped that we didn't have a lot of corners that year. So I actually got a lot of reps in camp, a lot of reps during the season. And, you know, I kind of worked my way up just throughout the year. Like, was on scout team, but one scout team player of the week on defense and special teams, took the drills serious, took Indy serious. And by the end of the year, I actually ended up traveling to the Wisconsin game, which was the second to last game of the year. And a lot of true freshman walk-ons like just aren't traveling. But this is 2017, so there was no 4-game redshirt rule. So I knew I wasn't gonna play, but I was on the sideline cold as hell. But it still signified to me that, all right, you know, the coaches are noticing all the work I'm putting in. I'm getting better, I'm improving. So this is, you know, this is a step in the right direction. So fast forward to 2018, you know, new freshman class comes in. And the thing about college is every single year they're bringing in new players. So like my guys in college football, don't get stressed out when, you know, coaches are recruiting a kid at your position the year behind you. Like that's literally always gonna happen no matter what school you're at. So, you know, you just gotta understand that's the nature of the business. But they brought in more kids, you know, 4 stars, 3 stars, whatever it was. Mind you, I'm a walk-on, no stars. So go through spring ball and I had a really good spring. You know, we had some injuries, so that forced me to get more reps, but that just helped my confidence, helped me my development. And I ended up putting myself in a good position for fall camp. And then fall camp came around, and you know, the one thing about being a walk-on is if you're not starting, even if you are starting, but especially when you're not starting, the coaches, they're gonna give other players more opportunities to kind of overtake you on the depth chart. So, you know, I'm still young at the time. I'm not really understanding kind of how the big picture works. I'm still just thinking like, oh, it's kind of like high school where, you know, you do well, you get more reps, eventually, you know, you get a chance to play. In college, it's like if you're not starting, they're going to try and develop the guys who have the highest possible ceilings. And I was never the fastest guy, never the tallest, never the strongest, you know, so there were definitely guys behind me that they were trying to give them more reps to kind of expedite their process and get them ready to play for when the starters were gone. But even with all that throughout the season, you know, I was still getting reps, still doing well in special teams, which was the by far biggest thing that I will tell every single person who asks me about like tips for college football is like special teams, special teams, special teams. That is what's going to get you on the field. That is what's going to help you stay on the depth chart on offense or defense. So there were guys who, you know, took the special teams drills, bullshitted them. So me being able to be a backup on multiple special teams at multiple positions, that allowed me to travel, which allowed me to actually, you know, play in some games that true or redshirt freshmen walk-ons, you know, they're not a lot, like they don't play a lot. It's just the nature of college football. But anyways, so the season ends and going into the next spring ball, so this is 2019 spring ball, I put myself in a position where I'm firmly on the 2 deep, you know, firmly with the 2s. And there was a conversation because we had a lot of depth at corner, not a lot of depth at safety. And the coaches, they asked me, yo, do you want to make the switch to safety? And I really felt like that switch was kind of gonna allow me to explore my highest upside, which was at safety, because I've always been an extremely intelligent football player. So being at safety, I felt like kind of gave me the ability to use my brain more than at corner, and I made the switch. So keep going through spring ball, you know, had a great, like phenomenal spring. Like probably my best spring at Michigan was that 2019 spring, and put myself in a really good position going into summer. Oh yeah, and actually that 2019 winter, so like January 2019, I was put on scholarship. So that was like, all right, you know, you're kind of doing everything right. You're on an upward trajectory. Just got to keep staying on the path you're on, and you know, you'll be playing eventually. So we're going through summer workouts and stuff. We're going through like walkthroughs, and there are a few packages where I'm actually like with the ones in the packages, like nickel dime packages. So I'm starting to develop some confidence, starting to develop, a sense of, all right, I belong on the field here. I can play with these guys. Like, let's go. Let's get to it. And then like maybe a week and a half before camp started in 2019, I got tendonitis in my left knee, like super bad. Couldn't bend it, couldn't squat on it, couldn't even cut on it really. But I've never been a person to kind of take time off from sports. So I was like, all right, let me just pop a bunch of Advil, pop a bunch of ibuprofen, do a ton of rehab and recovery stuff. And, I gotta be out here to play, because they always say you can't make the club in the tub. So I knew that your best availability is your availability. So if I wasn't on the field, then I get passed by the wayside. All the hard work I put in would pretty much go to waste. But unfortunately, my knee affected me way more than I thought. And eventually it got so bad that I was putting so much weight on my other leg, my good leg, that eventually I developed tendonitis in that knee. So I had tendonitis in both knees the entire 2019 season. Couldn't squat, couldn't jump, could barely cut. And it really affected me. Like, I had a terrible camp, but the biggest issue was there were times when, it felt good, I was good, but my mental was just so bad, especially from if I had a bad practice the day before, I would allow that to carry over into the next day. And it was just a kind of a snowball spiral effect. And eventually, it got to the point where I was just not even the same player I was during spring ball. And, it showed. There were also some younger players who were having great camps. My boy Dax, love him to death on the Bengals right now, first round pick for them 2 years ago. But this was his freshman year. He was balling, and then I was putting more pressure, more stress on myself. Like, all right, I got to pick it up. I got to make plays. So then I started pressing. And if you've ever played football, once you start pressing, like, things just go terrible. Like, I made a ton of mental mistakes, just ton of, mistakes that I couldn't really afford to make, especially being someone who wasn't the most athletic, didn't have the highest upside. And, having that walk-on background, even if you get put on scholarship, you're always still going to be kind of viewed as a walk-on in a sense, especially if you haven't really solidified yourself on the field. So, all that to say that 2019 fall camp, like, I just wasn't good enough, like, point blank period. And looking back on it, I can kind of, see that I wasn't, and, be honest with myself about that. But at the time, you're still kind of a young person, like 20 years old, you're still young. And, you see someone else mess up and you're kind of like, yo, they're messing up. They're still getting reps. Like, I mess up, I get taken out. Like, that's kind of bullshit. But something you got to realize is in college, like, we always called it leashes. So everyone does not have the same leash. You got to understand that. So someone like me, a walk-on, never really played on the field, never kind of proved themselves. I had a short leash. So, you make a mental mistake or something like that, you miss a tackle, you're quick to get pulled. But someone who's a 3-year starter, who's made a ton of plays on the field, has the coach's confidence, they can mess up and, they're going to have more ability, more opportunity to kind of fix it. So the season starts and, my mental is pretty bad. Like, I'm playing on special teams, but, I felt like, all right, I could be playing on defense right now. I could be helping the team more. But, we're going through the season. I'm kind of thinking like that. And I think it was like the Wisconsin week. I made like a couple mistakes in a row in practice. And then one of our assistant coaches, he pulled me to the side. He's like, yo, like, when you're on the field right now, it just looks like you're miserable. It looks like you're not having like no type of fun. And that's when it kind of hit me like, like, you're right. No matter how poorly everything's gone in my head up to this point, like, I'm still on the field. I'm still getting reps. Like, let's start having fun with it. Let's treat football the way football is meant to be treated, the way I treated football, when I was in elementary school, middle school, having fun with it. So that was kind of like the moment where everything in my head, like, kind of a switch flipped. And it got, I started thinking about, how I should be playing, how I mess up and other guys get in. And I'm like, let me just focus on myself. Let me focus on becoming the best version of myself each day, really improving myself to where it doesn't matter how many mistakes other people make. I'm just going to be a person that, isn't making mistakes. So as the season went on, once I kind of like made that switch in my brain, like, I just started getting way better, improving way more. But the season ends going into 2020 and we have a new safeties coach. And he's like, the coach has been talking to me about you. They say, second half of the year, you really made a lot of improvements. They really like how smart you are on the football field. right now we had our two starters, Brad Hawkins, still one of my guys, Dax Hill. But, you know, third safety is going to be someone that plays a lot in this defense. So we think, you know, you're a guy that can be in that role. So I was still about a year out from my degree, and I wasn't going to leave Michigan until I graduated. So, you know, I wasn't going to hop in the portal early just because I wasn't playing as much as I wanted to, or as much as I probably could at another school. I was like, yo, I'm going to get my degree. And so going into 2020, you know, I'm starting to have even more confidence in myself, more confidence in my ability on the field. And, you know, we're a week away from spring ball. I'm like, yo, it's on. And that's when COVID hit. So, you know, didn't have any spring ball, but I think in that time too, the confidence that I had in myself on the field also kind of allowed me to develop more of like a leadership role in the team. So we still had, like, you know, I wasn't a captain or anything. We still had those guys, but especially in the like secondary, I think that that's kind of when I started becoming more of a leader amongst everybody. But anyways, so you know, COVID happens. I go through it. We actually got back. It was June 15th. I remember that for a fact. So we get back June 15th, and we start going through like unpadded practices. So I'm doing well, playing with, you know, this confidence that I'd been developing towards the end of the 2019 season, developing even more of it, you know, becoming even more comfortable in the defense, on the field. And then the Big Ten made the decision to cancel the season. And when that happened, I was still dealing with the tendonitis in both my knees. So I actually made the decision to get a PRP shot in both of them at the same time. And that would essentially knock me out for 2 weeks. But I was like, all right, you know, we're not playing. So it's better for me to try and be more healthy than go through practice right now and be hurting. And then if the season does, you know, continue or does get unpostponed, you know, not be ready for it. So I go through the PRP shots. You know, I'm rehabbing it for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And then I'm ready to get back out there practicing. But I see we'd been posting depth charts during that time. They posted a depth chart, and I was with the fours. And like I said before, you know, when you're a walk-on, you don't have the ability to miss time. You're not really afforded the opportunity to miss time, come back, and be kind of in the spot you were in necessarily before. So I'm with the fours, and if this was a year earlier, like, I would have been done. I would have shut down, you know, would have been wraps. But kind of knowing what I knew about the previous year, I was like, all right, let me just put my head down, do what I do, get to work. You know, I'll be able to, you know, put myself back in the position I was in no time. So a few weeks of practice go by. Eventually, you know, I work my way back up the depth chart, and they actually call the season back on. So before we were just kind of practicing to get better as a team. Now we're actually practicing for something. So at this point, we're approaching the Minnesota game, first game of the year. I'm a backup at both safety spots in base packages, nickel packages, and, you know, starting on a few special teams. And then we go through the game. One of starting safeties gets hurt. So they brought in one of the other backups. I was told later after the fact that the safeties coach wanted me to go in, the DC wanted someone else to go in. So, you know, DC supersedes all. But, you know, it was what it was. Like, I wasn't pressed about it. I was like, all right, you know, I was going to keep working, keep putting my head down, grinding, because me focusing on things I can't control, that's not going to help anything. That's not going to help me get better as a player, as a person. So I was like, all right, you know, we're just going to keep working. It is what it is. But for all you that remember the 2020 Michigan season, it did not go well. We lost to Michigan State, lost to Indiana the week after that. So we were 1-2. And Coach Harbaugh, I'm going to paraphrase it, but he went in front of the entire team basically and said, you know, we have guys in practice who are balling, doing their thing, working their asses off, getting better. You know, they're going to have an opportunity to play this week. And he specifically called me out as one of the first names in front of the entire team. So I'm like, all right, bet it's the opportunity I needed. You feel me? We finna go out this week. We finna ball out, do our thing. Y'all finna turn up on the field. And what's funny is the entire season, I've been wearing, Jordan 10 cleats, I think it was. So I've been wearing those, right? I don't know why, but in pregame I had them on. And I was like, you know, these just, I don't know, they don't feel right. My foot doesn't feel secure enough. So I actually switched over to my practice cleats, like anticipating, you know, me being on the field for large portions of the game. So, you know, game starts, first couple drives go by, I'm standing there next to the coaches, nothing, not a damn thing. So the end of the first quarter comes, still no defensive snaps. End of the second quarter comes, 0 defensive snaps. End of the third quarter comes, 0 defensive snaps. Bro, at this point, like, fourth quarter starting, bro, in my head, I'm like, yo, fuck this, man. Like, I'm done. I'm hitting the portal on Monday. Like, bro, I'm sick of this. I'm done with it. I'm about to graduate. next spring, I'm gonna have my degree and be able to grad transfer. Like, I'm out of here. Yo, I don't know what it is, but like every time a coach says you're gonna play that week or be ready to play, you're gonna have an opportunity to play. I don't know why, but you don't ever play. Like, it's happened to me. I've seen it happen to other people. Like, I don't know why. I don't know why it's a thing in football, but it just is. Oh yeah, and to make matters worse, with like 2 to 3 minutes left, they were like, "Yo, Hunt, you're up right now." So I'm like, yo, why the fuck are y'all putting me in right now? Like, we are getting blown out. Put someone else in, bro. Like, why am I going in right now? I was supposed to play. I remember I was supposed to play a bunch of snaps this game, but yeah, y'all don't want to put me in then. Y'all want to put me in now though. So we actually, game gets over with. When I get back to my locker, actually, I remember I'd like took a bunch of stuff out and brought it like back to my apartment because I was like, yo, I'm gonna start cleaning my locker out, like, that way I can hit the portal on Monday. But I woke up the next morning, I was like, all right, let's let cooler heads prevail, you feel me? I can hop in the portal right now, but like, it's the middle of the season and we're in COVID. Like, coaches aren't looking through the portal, it's just not gonna go well if I hop in right now. So there's like literally 0 point to doing it. Like, it won't make sense. So then, I had like a little internal talk with myself. I was like, all right, every time you decided to just get better, put your head down, control what you control, it's always worked out for you. So let's just do that again, you feel me? And, at the end of the season, jump in the portal. It is what it is, you'll be good. So then the next week, we get to Rutgers. First half, didn't really play. But at the beginning of the third quarter, one of the starting safeties goes down with an injury. Yo, they're like, Hunt, you're up. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yo, thank God I took the approach of I'm just going to, put my head down and keep working, because if I hopped in that portal, who knows what the end result would have been. But anyway, so I go in the game, I did pretty well, I'm not going to lie. There were a couple of plays that, looking back on it, it's like, damn, yo, I wish I had the confidence that I had in 2021, 2022 when I was at Utah State. I wish I had that confidence in that game, because I would have made a lot more plays. I would have made like some bigger plays and, put our team in a better position to win. But, it was pretty much my first time extensively playing in college. We ended up getting the win. And then the next week, Brad comes back, but probably like second, third play of the game, hurts his same shoulder again. So he's done for the game. So I go in, pretty much play the entire Penn State game, made some plays there. Actually, that's still the game that I had the most tackles in my college career. I think I had 11 or 12. But yeah, it was just like another game where it's like I was still kind of in the mode of I just don't want to make a mistake on the field, as opposed to let me like use my intelligence, let me use kind of all the skills I have to be a playmaker out there. So there are some things, if I can go back in time and have everything I know now back then, I think I would have made even more plays. Things would have turned out things would have turned out differently. But yeah, I was playing on the field, did well. But that Penn State game, it was the Thanksgiving weekend. So we get back the next week. Brad, he's done. Like, his shoulder's like messed up. He's not gonna be able to play for, a few weeks. So I'm slated to get the start that week. I'm like, all right, boom. College start. People told me I was never ever even gonna play in college, and I'm about to start in, a Big Ten game. But like I said, Thanksgiving weekend, bunch of people's families visited them, and we had a huge COVID outbreak on the team. So Maryland game canceled. The next week after that, Ohio State game canceled. Season basically over with. And a funny story about the Ohio State game is I remember a bunch of people saying like we were ducking, we were gonna get blown out, because that was the year they had Justin Fields and all of them, and made the national championship. But we legitimately, when we went to practice the Monday before that game, I think we had like maybe 40 players that were available between like scholarship guys and walk-ons. We literally had like equipment managers and coaches running scout teams. It was bad. Like, there was no way we'd have been able to field a team for that game. So that was the end of the season, basically just getting ready for next season for spring ball. And we got a whole new defensive staff. So all the thoughts I had of, I'm gonna hit the portal then, be done with my career in Michigan. It was a great career there, but it's time to move on somewhere I can have a more significant role. But I thought to myself, this new staff, they run a lot more nickel packages, 3 safeties on the field. So, let me stay here and compete, I showed that I can be on the field, compete with, some of the best players in the Big Ten. So I was like, let me stay here, compete for this 3rd safety spot, become a major contributor on the team. And actually, when we started spring ball, we literally kept the same exact depth chart from the end of the previous year. So I was, getting reps at practice that first, during the walkthroughs before spring ball, and then the first practice of spring ball. And mind you, this is 2021, so we're still dealing with COVID and stuff. But yeah, so we go through the first practice, do well. Second practice, I remember we were in, I want to say we were in like a special team. We just got done with a special teams drill. We were doing like kind of safety indie, and the training staff tapped me on my shoulder and like, yo, someone in the group that you tested with tested positive for COVID, so you have to go test again. So I retest, they send me home, get a call like an hour later, yo, Hunt, you tested positive for COVID. So I'm like, damn, bro, I'm damn near finna miss like half of spring ball right now. I had to go to quarantine, you know, I'm sick. I'm like, fuck, man, like this is literally the worst possible thing that could happen to me at this time. Or so I thought in my head in the moment. Looking back on it now, you know, I'm happy it happened because I think transferring out when I did was the best decision that I made for my future. But anyways, so I gotta go through basically gotta go through meetings virtually, gotta just watch practice and try and learn that way. And like I said, we had a whole new defensive staff, so we had a whole new defensive scheme, whole new playbook, and you know, I wasn't getting the reps that everyone else was getting, and I wasn't learning the way everyone else was learning. So eventually I worked my way back. I wanna say it was practice like 9 or 10 for everyone else, but mind you, this is like my second practice. So the first practice I had back in full pads, I remember I got like a pretty good amount of reps, you know, made some like really good plays. And I'm thinking like, all right, you know, I'm in a good spot. I'm in a spot where, all right, I can still compete, still, you know, make some of this. But remember earlier when I said when you're a walk-on, you don't have the same luxury of missing time and then kind of resuming everything. Like once you miss time as a walk-on, you're basically having to restart. So I missed time. There were some other people that started separating themselves from the pack. And the second practice when I got back, I think I got like maybe 2 or 3 reps. And at that point I was like, yeah, you know, all right, this is when I'm gonna hit the portal for real now. I'm graduating in a couple weeks. You know, there are a lot of places in the country that can use the safety. I have enough film to, you know, probably put myself at a good enough school to where I have a chance to give myself an opportunity for the next level. So we got done with that practice, called both my parents, pretty much just told them like, yo, hitting the portal. And both of them understood, you know, they were like, all right, they were like, yeah, you know, we kind of expected it. We were kind of shocked when you didn't hit it back when last season ended. But, you know, we support you. We think you're about to graduate. You know, we think you always make good decisions. We think this is another decision you're going to make that is going to turn out for the best for you. So I hit the portal, which was one of the best decisions of my life. You know, if I could go back in time and enter it again, I'd enter it again. But, yeah, so that was kind of, you know, the story of why I left Michigan. But I just want to say there's absolutely no bad blood between me and Michigan. Like, I love Michigan. I'm a Michigan man. I'm always go blue. Watch all their games I'm able to. Like when I was at Utah State, I would literally have my phone out during, you know, pregame meals watching the Michigan game. So, you know, that's kind of the reason why I left Michigan. That's the story behind it. It's not some super, like, I don't feel like I got screwed out of anything, you know. Everything that happened, I feel like is just part of the college football business, which is why I wanted to tell this story, because there are probably people out there going through the same things, but you have to understand that, you know, the nature of college football is pretty cutthroat. It's a business. You know, the quicker you understand that it's best to just remove personal feelings out of it, the better off you'll be. So, you know, that's kind of my message to all you guys that are watching this video. And people always ask me if I would go to Michigan again, if I could do everything over. And I really think I would. Mainly because my whole rationale for choosing to go to Michigan was, if I were to go somewhere else and play, I would probably always in the back of my head think, you know, what if I went to Michigan and actually played? And, you know, I did go to Michigan and I did play. So for someone who was a walk-on with no stars, no offers, and, you know, managed to make the career out of it that I did, I definitely think that all things considered, you know, that was a huge success. And I've always been someone who I don't ever want to be able to look back on something and say, what if I had, you know, done something differently? What if I took more of a risk? You know, I'm a huge risk taker. Like, I'll literally make decisions that most people would say are completely based off an irrational confidence in myself. But I love that about me. I think that, you know, it served me well to this point, and I think it's going to serve me well in the future. But yeah, if you made it this far, you feel me, like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know in the comments, too, what other questions you got about, you know, college football, what other questions you got about recruiting, depth charts, I don't know, whatever you might have a question of, ask in the comments, because odds are I've probably been through some experience that will give me knowledge about it. But I'm going to catch y'all next time. Peace.